The Street Fighter is powered by V4 Desmo engine with a 90-degree bank angle and a 70-degree crank pin offset, allowing for a V-twin-like firing order. Meanwhile, the Tuono V4 also features V4 engine, but with a narrower 65 degrees bank angle and a 180-degree crank offset, giving it different characteristics and, in my opinion, better sound. The Ducati boasts a 1,103cc engine, the same as the Panigale, while the Tuono follows a different path, no longer sharing its engine with its paired sibling, the RSV4. Despite the RSV4's capacity hike to 1,099cc in 2021, the Tuono V4 remains at 1,077cc. On the other hand, the Super Duke features the fewest cylinders in this comparison, with a 75-degree V-twin configuration, but it compensates with a 1,350cc displacement, which is a 49cc increase from the old 1290, thanks to a 2mm larger bore. The Street Fighter boasts a 14:1 compression ratio, the highest among the three, and power is transferred to the rear wheel through a 6-speed wet clutch, complete with assist and slipper function. Additionally, the Street Fighter borrows some neat features from the Panigale. First up, there's the counter-rotating crankshaft that spins the other way around, said to reduce the bike's overall gyroscopic resistance, making it easier to turn and resulting in increased agility, lighter steering, and more nimble handling. Another feature is the rear cylinder deactivation, which switches off the two rear cylinders in certain conditions, like when idling at a red light or cruising at very low constant speeds, to reduce emissions and consumption, and hopefully to prevent your nuts from getting cooked while sitting in traffic. As for the Super Duke, it features a variable timing system that works similarly to the BMW shift cam system. This system offers variable cam duration and cam lift at different revs, giving it a wider spread of power and torque across the rev range. Then when it comes to fuel capacity, the Tuono is capable of holding slightly more fuel than the others. However, if we consider the claimed fuel consumption figures, the Super Duke, boasting fewer cylinders, guzzles much less fuel than the others, which should give it a greater riding range, meaning more riding time and fewer stops at gas stations. The Tuono, that has the smallest engine and is not using the latest specs RSV4 engine, is a lot more tame than its rivals, churning out only 175 horsepower at the crank, even less than the twin-cylinder Super Duke. While as for the Street Fighter, it is the other way around. It's basically a stripped-down Panigale with little to no changes, especially in the engine department, producing 208 horsepower at the crank, just slightly lower than the Panigale, mostly because the Street Fighter didn't get the Panigale's variable intake system and opted for shorter gearing. Torque-wise, the Super Duke, which boasts a twin-cylinder and the largest engine, naturally produces more power at the low end, generating 145 Nm of torque at the crank, significantly more than the others. In terms of weight, in a ready-to-ride state including 90% of fuel, based on our own calculations, the Super Duke is the heaviest, weighing 213 kilograms. However, the difference is not significant, just 2 kilos more than the Tuono, and 8 more than the Ducati. Ultimately, with a gap in power output and weight, the Tuono sits at the bottom of this comparison with the lowest power-to-weight ratio. The Super Duke comes in second, and the Street Fighter takes the crown as the winner in this round. So as for top-end power, there is no doubt that the track-oriented Street Fighter takes the top spot, while Torque Monster Super Duke dominates in low to mid-range power, and Tuono falls somewhere in between. Now let's listen how these three hyper-naked bikes sound compared to each other. Talking electronics, the Street Fighter and Tuono are pretty much neck and neck. They both come loaded with state-of-the-art rider aids like cornering ABS, IMU, ride-by-wire throttle, multiple riding modes, lean-sensitive traction control, and a quick-shifter. Aprilia throws in cruise control as standard, but you won't find that on the Ducati. And when it comes to slide control, it's the other way around. Both bikes also pack wheelie control, launch control, engine brake control, semi-active suspension, and a TFT display. And if you fancy multimedia systems, they're optional extras for both. As for the Super Duke, KTM isn't quite as generous as the others. Most of its electronics are either completely locked or don't offer any adjustment at all. It does come with cornering ABS, IMU, and ride-by-wire, but the more advanced features like adjustable riding modes, traction control, and quickshifter are all locked down. Cruise control comes standard, and slide control is optional. You can also opt for a more advanced wheelie control that can be tweaked and turned off, but it comes at an additional cost, as does the launch and engine brake control. And similar to other bikes, the higher trim Evo version comes equipped with semi-active suspension. A TFT display is standard, and there's the option to add a multimedia system. The Super Duke is equipped with KTM's signature trellis frame made from chromoly steel, while the Tuono uses a perimeter-style frame made from aluminum. Meanwhile, Ducati uses what they call a front frame, which is a less traditional perimeter-style frame that places more emphasis on the engine as a stressed member, using the engine as the anchor for the subframe and other components to bolt onto. It is super compact and light, but some people say it can be very stiff and doesn't absorb lateral bumps, as well as the more traditional perimeter frames. As for front suspension, both the Ducati and Aprilia get an Öhlins NIX30 upside-down semi-active fully adjustable fork, whereas the Super Duke utilizes a semi-active fully adjustable fork from WP, which is owned by KTM. The same goes for the rear suspension. The Street Fighter and Tuono sport fully adjustable semi-active Öhlins shocks, whereas the Super Duke gets a shock from WP. Then when it comes to stopping power, the Street Fighter and Super Duke are fitted with Brembo Stylema calipers, while the Tuono gets a lower-spec Brembo M50. Lastly, in terms of price, the Street Fighter is the most expensive, coming in at $27,595, way pricier than the Super Duke are Evo at $21,499, and even more so compared to the Tuono V4 Factory, which goes for under 20 grand. So to sum it up quickly, the Street Fighter boasts the strongest top-end power, is the lightest, and has the highest power-to-weight ratio. It's the only bike in this group with over 1 horsepower per kilogram power-to-weight ratio, and it's not just about the high-end power. Its low-end grunt is impressive too, delivering plenty of torque, even more than the Tuono. It's the most serious, sophisticated, and track-oriented bike among the three. On the other hand, the Super Duke is the most playful of the three, embodying strong hooligan and supermoto genes. It stands out as the only bike built from the ground up as a naked bike, unlike the other two, which are essentially stripped-down superbikes. The Super Duke is now stronger and smoother than ever, boasting a larger refined engine, a new variable timing system, and improved electronics. Meanwhile, the Tuono, which received its last update 3 years ago, might not boast the highest horsepower, torque, or even the lightest weight, but it stands out as the best all-rounder. It also offers a neutral riding position and dimensions that strike a balance, not too cramped like the Street Fighter and not too big and tall for shorter riders like the Super Duke. Although it is the most affordable bike out of the three, it does offer most rider aids as standard and is also equipped with semi-active suspension. Despite being the least powerful here, making just 175 horsepower at the crank, in reality, its performance on the road is never lacking, and for most riders like us, the 20 or 30 horsepower difference wouldn't even be noticed most of the time, not to mention the praise it receives for its excellent handling. So in my personal opinion, the Tuono emerges as the winner, simply because its price-to-performance ratio is unbeatable.